Indigenous Rights Radio, because knowledge is power.
The Cultural Survival Bazaars are a series of cultural festivals organized by Indigenous Peoples' rights organization, Cultural Survival, that provide Indigenous artists and artisans, cooperatives, and their representatives from around the world the chance to sell their work directly to the public. Each event features traditional and contemporary crafts, artwork, clothing, jewelry, home goods, and accessories from dozens of countries. In addition, the bazaars offer cultural performances and presentations including live music, storytelling, craft making demonstrations, and the unique chance to talk directly with makers and community advocates. In this podcast, Cultural Survival's Diana Pastor spoke to Tarin Gonzales, who is of Mapuche and Diaguita descent and is also a jewelry designer who is based in New York.
My name is Tarin Gonzales, and I'm here representing Mapuche and Diaguita people, pero I currently live in Westchester County, New York. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you and speak to Cultural Survival and the people who listen to you. First, I want to start off by saying that, I wasn't born in Walmapu being the territory of Mapuche people, or Antancari, the location of where my father's from. And I was born here. So I speak from the experience of being born here in the United States and in North America, but also culturally being raised in a home that maintained traditions that were Mapuche mainly. So I wanted to start from there because I think it wouldn't be right to say Mapuche without bringing the urgency of my community, especially since I don't live in that experience.
Right, because that's the story of many people. I was also raised in the city, not in my community, the community of where my fathers and where my father and my mother were born. You kind of bring this culture again to your life. So I would like to know a little bit more about you and what the territory means for your family, for your community.
Yeah. As I said, I was born and raised here. So going home was visiting home, right? It wasn't a thing of, staying there for long periods of time. And when I say long periods of time, I mean months, right? It usually was 2-3 weeks, a month. So I just got to experience snippets of my community. But as I've gotten older, I think I'm experiencing my land, my people, going back home more as an experience of learning, of growing, of reconnecting. I think that's what's most important for me is the reconnecting piece, and learning more in depth about tradition and culture, and actually everything that I was taught as a child, from foods to medicinal practices in my home, and understanding where that was coming from, where the ruda, for example, una planta that's medicinal in our community, and understanding why I would consume ruda when I was a child, so those type of things.
Thank you so much for telling us that, like, the small things connecting us to our roots. And we'd like to know a little bit more also about your crafts and how is the process. Do you use 100% natural elements? Tell us everything.
Yeah. So I had started making art, and it was a way to place my energy into something, because I worked as I head a community center, a food pantry specifically, and I brought along with me a lot of a lot of the pain, the trauma that my community that I was serving here in the United States. And I would take it home with me. So I needed to find an outlet. So I began to make my jewelry that way. But I started to realize that the influences that I was using actually was tapping into my own culture, right? And tapping into designs and things that I was seeing when I went to visit home, and I was bringing them back. And then I started to realize that this was actually a way for me to show up here in this community, in the community that I currently live in, and bringing my people from home here. And it's been really nice to represent Chilean people, to represent Mapuche people, specifically the Diaguita people who we don't really get to see often in these spaces. So it's really beautiful to participate in an event where you're seen as a Mapuche Diaguita person, and be full physical body to be here to represent that and what that looks like.
Right. Because, for many artists, it's so difficult to travel here. So taking this opportunity to represent your people, it means a lot for them.
Yeah, it really does. And I think also something that needs to be mentioned, my craft is not the traditional Mapuche art that you see, the trapalucha. Those silver smithing is really what identifies Mapuche art or jewelry crafting, right? And I don't do that. My art it's different. I use different elements. I use wood, I use leather. And because of the influences that I have, growing up in New York City, I bring that with me. So I think when people think about a Mapuche artist, I also want people to start thinking about what is that looking like. I don't want to say futuristically, but outside of that, what do we look like as people living in the diaspora?
Right. There's a lot of indigenous people living out of their communities that can be nowadays like urban indigenous peoples.
Right.
And then you have influences.
Right.
But at the same time, you're bringing your culture to this new world.
Right.
And then that is very important to keep the traditions.
Yeah.
So talking about the products, is it difficult to market your products? Have you found a fair price? Is it something profitable and sustainable what you do?
The honest answer, no. Because I think people don't value our craftsmanship. I think that's a problem. I think the market is saturated with things that are very cheap. And something that I make as an earring, some person may say, well, I can find that for, less than $10, less than $5, and don't take into consideration the amount of work that we put into sourcing the material, making sure that it's coming from a place that also feels the same way that I do, that wants to respect the earth. So I think that our craftsmanship, especially indigenous craftsmanship, is not valued the way it should be.
Thank you so much. How do you find about the Cultural Survival Bazaar, and what are your expectations, your goals when participating at this event?
So I found out about Cultural Survival a couple of years ago, just because of the work that they do in terms of supporting indigenous media, and just the diversity of the people that they support. So I really liked that. And then obviously through social media and through the newsletter, finding out about the bazaar, and that really spiked my interest, because there isn't that many markets that actually invite people from diverse communities. And obviously, like I said, Mapuche and Diaguita, it's like, I never see that. So it's really nice to be amongst vendors who are from around the world, and we get to showcase our art.
Right. would you like to give a final message to invite people to come to the bazaar and also the importance about the bazaars?
No, I encourage everyone to come to the bazaar, and stop at each table, have a conversation, find out who they are, where they're coming from, maybe ask about the process. And again, I don't say it in terms of like, stay there for half an hour, because we're also working, right? So also respecting our labor and part of the work that we're doing, right? This is a bit of it's transactional, but we also don't want it to just be transactional. We also want you to walk away knowing a little bit about what you brought, a little bit about the history, so that way when you are asked where you purchased it from, you can actually retell our story.
Thank you so much, Tarin.
Thank you.
For more on the rights of Indigenous peoples, visit cs.org and follow Cultural Survival on Facebook and X.